Assalamualaikum to our esteemed lecturer, Dr. Azlina Abdul Aziz. My name is Ahmad Hamizan, Lutfi Amir, matric number P144403. Today, I'm going to present my independent study. The topic for my study is language learning strategies and challenges for deaf and hard of hearing students in English language. This is a systematic literature review paper. The table of content for the study is introduction. We're going through the research question, the conceptual background, problem statement, theoretical framework, our methodology, and go through a data analysis, findings, and the conclusion. To begin, it is important to understand the unique nature of sign language. So, according to Rasgu, Kiani, and Escalera 2021, sign language is a visual gestural form of communication that relies heavily on hand movements, facial expression, and body language. So, unlike spoken languages, which are auditory and linear, sign languages are a visual, spatial, and operate under a different set of grammatical rules. So, these differences create significant challenges for deaf students or DHH students in acquiring English literacy, particularly in areas such as reading, comprehension, writing, and English syntax, as noted by Nugroho and Lingtang Sari 2022. For teachers, the situation is equally complex. This is why because they must navigate a variety of science systems while ensuring effective English instruction. So in the context of Malaysia, several science systems are commonly used in education, including Sign Isaac English, SEE, American Sign Language, ASL, Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, BIM, and Kod Tangan Bahasa Melayu, KTBM. These systems are designed to bridge the gap between sign and spoken or written English, but they are required specific instructional strategies tailored to the needs of deaf and hard of hearing students learn. So many DHC students continue to struggle with English grammar due to factors like limited grammatical input, negative language transfer, and the lack of contextualized English use in their environment, as noted by Subin and Liang Isara 2022. In response to these challenges, researchers and educators have increasingly focused on the use of language learning strategies, or commonly known as LLS, which support learners in understanding, retaining, and applying English. According to Kang and Scott, these strategies may include a variety of techniques and approaches in enhancing grammar acquisition for students. However, despite growing research in this area, Crowl point out that there is no comprehensive synthesis of the most effective ELS or the most preferred ELS specifically tailored for DHH students. As a result, it remains difficult for educators and policymakers to implement evidence-based practices. Therefore, this systematic literature review aims to fill that gap by identifying, evaluating the challenges, and recommending the effective LS that can support English instruction for deaf or for DHA students. So these are the research questions. Number one, what are the pedagogical challenges teachers face when using sign language to teach English to deaf and hard hearing students? Number two, what language learning strategies are considered to be most effective for deaf and hard hearing students in English language development? Conceptually, this study distinguishes between two types of sign systems: natural languages like natural sign languages like BIM and ASL, uh, which are more intuitive and community-based, and the other one is a manually coded systems like SEE and KTBM, which mirror English grammar. Bimodal bilingualism, which integrates both spoken English, is considered more effective for literacy development. In such bilingual environments, students use a mix of cognitive, metacognitive, and social strategies to manage both language inputs. However, existing research really tailored LLS specifically to these bilingual science supported settings, especially within the Malaysian context. In this study, the core issue lies in how different science systems influence English instruction for deaf students. As Singleton and Meyer 2021 highlight, systems like BIM or ASL serve different roles and aren't linguistically aligned with English. Natural sign languages such as BIM and ASL have their own unique syntax, making English a second language for many deaf and hard of hearing students, as stated by Saiful 2023 and Ballard 2022. So, manually coded systems like SEE or KTBM is an attempt to represent English grammar visually. However, there are many challenges that can be identified when switching between these two sign systems. So this study uses Oxford 1990 language learning strategies taxonomy, which classifies strategies into six types. The six types are cognitive, metacognitive, memory-related, compensatory, affective, and social. These categories help frame how learners acquire language in both spoken and written contexts. DHH learners who rely heavily on visual input benefit from strategies like visual scaffolding, finger spelling, and assistive technologies such as captions or sign integrated media. Pollack, however, emphasized that the role of teachers in modeling and reinforcing these strategies, ensuring students can internalize and apply them in real learning tasks. So this study uses a systematic literature review approach to consolidate findings on language learning strategies for DHA students. To ensure accuracy and transparency, I applied a Prisma framework which structures the process into four phases: identification, screening, eligibility, and inclusion. The goal was to ensure a comprehensive yet focused review of studies relevant to the science-supported English instructions. Okay, this is the Prisma flow diagram that is visually represent my systematic literature review paper. Uh, Initially, there are 428 records were identified from Google Scholar, Eric and Scopus. After removing the duplicates and irrelevant titles, 154 studies were screened. Of these 154 studies, 86 a full text report which were accessed, and finally 15 studies were included. This is the 15 studies are the final tally number in the systematic literature review. The exclusion reasons were clearly categorized, such as language mismatch, meaning that in the articles they were not in Bahasa or in English. It's non-empirical focus or lack of sign language integration. The search was conducted across three major databases: Scopus, Google Scholar, and ERIC. To ensure relevant results, specific Boolean strings were used. For instance, searches combine terms like deaf students, deaf and hard of hearing students, language learning strategies, and sign language systems such as ASL, SEE, BIM, and KTBM. Google Scholar results were manually screened for the top 200 entries to maintain quality and relevance. To ensure consistency and relevance, strict inclusion and exclusion criteria were applied. As you can see, studies had to be published within 2020 and 2025. Uh, it is peer reviewed and focus on deaf or hard of hearing students learning English using sign language. So we also excluded a study that is editorial, book reviews, opinion, and pieces. Excluded also studies that are not in English or Bahasa Melayu, and studies that are lack an educational or empirical basis, means that the studies, we exclude studies that are not collecting data or not having the real life experience conducting on deaf students. Mm. This filtering process helped narrow the scope to a high quality studies that directly inform teaching practices. Uh, for the data analysis part, I employed thematic analysis as our data analysis method to uncover recurring patterns and themes related to language learning strategies for DHH students. Additionally, I explored the challenges of using sign language as an instructional tool in language teaching, which be able to provide valuable insights into both effective strategies and the obstacles that educators face. Now for the key findings, discussion, and implications. In order to answer this, to look at our findings and discussion, we need to identify our main objective, whether we answered these research questions. So to revise again, research questions number one, what are the primary linguistic and pedagogical challenges teachers face when using sign language to teach English to DHA students or deaf students? What language learning strategies are considered most effective for deaf students' literacy development? So our findings and discussions are going to cover based on these research questions. So for the first part of challenges, is teacher training and exposure to sign language. So many studies, including those by Asari 2024 and Ishra 2022, emphasize persistent issues which educators in special education often lack formal training in sign language. So because of this, teachers tend to teach themselves or rely on peers, which leads to inconsistency in sign language learning and sign language teaching. One teacher might sign a word differently from another, causing DHC students to struggle associating English words with the right sign. Furthermore, many teachers default to using SEE, sign is like English, because it mimics English grammar. Uh, so teacher thinks that it is easier to teach using SEE. But this limits students' exposure to the natural sign languages like ASL or BIM, which better reflect how the Asian students communicate. Without standardized curricula, this inconsistency continue to create barriers for both teaching and learning experiences in the classroom setting. For the next challenges is navigating multiple sign language systems. One of the most taxing challenges for DHA students and educators is switching between different sign systems, ESL, SEE, BIM, and KTBM, especially in Malaysia. For example, ASL is a natural language which doesn't follow English grammar. So when students try to translate ASL thoughts into English, they often struggle with sentence structure and grammar. On the flip side, SEE helps mimic English grammar, but this disrupts a natural flow of the communication. Therefore, this dual processing, navigating between meaning and grammar, places a high cognitive burden. It's like speaking one language but being tested in another. That's the Moreover, many DHA students aren't exposed to English in everyday conversation. This limits their ability to pick up nuances like idioms and rhythm, making their writing and comprehension less natural and on the surface level. The next challenges is bilingual and multimodal challenges. So bilingual bimodal approaches, which using both sign language and spoken slash written English, have shown promising results by Nosher 2025 and Simpson and Mayer 2022 found that combining ASL with traditional instruction improves both expressive and receptive skills. But here's the catch. This only works when educators are fluent in both languages and understand DHH culture. Without this fluency and cultural competence, the strategy falls short. Additionally, it's cognitively heavy for students to toggle between two distinct language systems, as stated before by Cadwell 2022. He also states that inconsistent application of these strategies leads to a poor outcomes. So while model holds potential, proper training and clear frameworks are essential for it to succeed. Bintoro and Bintoro 2003 highlights how a combination of speech, reading, and sign language can meet the diverse needs of DHA students, especially those with residual hearing, okay, means that hard of hearing students. However, challenges remain. Studies by Asma Asari and Dashwini reveals gaps in teacher proficiency and confusion of the sign language modalities like BIM, KTBM, SEE, and ASL. Thus, without standardization, these bilingual practices can be inconsistent. Next, we are going to answer research question 2. The findings for that, most effective LS for DHC students or deaf students. So, the language learning strategies, or commonly known as LLS, offer DHC students powerful tools to connect their visual spatial language processing with English learning. Research identifies four major categories that are especially effective: visual, metacognitive, social, and digital strategies. These align with how the students naturally process information and provide pathways to develop literacy, grammar, and language confidence. Okay, we're going to the first part is visual strategies. Visual strategies are foundational for the students. One of the most powerful method is finger spelling. So it reinforces vocabulary and spelling accuracy by creating a mental map of English words. Repetition and visualization also helps clarify abstract concepts. This strategy links the structure of coded science system like SCE with the orthographic structure of English, thus improving literacy outcomes and supporting the way of DHH students naturally learn through their eyes. Next, effective strategies. We are going to cover meta-cognitive and social strategies. So, meta-cognitive strategies allow students to take ownership of their learning by setting goals, monitoring their progress, and adjusting their approaches. They become more engaged and successful, especially when dealing with multiple forms of input, signed, spoken, and written English. Meanwhile, social strategies like peer-assisted learning will be able to create a safe, collaborative spaces where the students can practice using both sign and written English. This build not only language skills but also motivation in the classroom inclusion setting. Last but not least is the digital strategies. So digital strategies combine multimedia elements, videos, animations, interactive tags to engage students in meaningful ways. These tools reinforce vocabulary and improve comprehension by using visuals and motions. So, when paired with hands-on activities like role-playing or storytelling, it will be able to create a rich learning environment. However, as Yasin 2021 cautioned that we need to balance digital exposure, especially when teaching grammar, to ensure students also develop a strong structural language skills. Now we are going through implications for teachers and policy makers. So these findings carry important implications for educators and policymakers, especially for teachers, because it is essential to receive ongoing professional development that emphasize multimodal LLS. This includes combining visual and kinesthetic methods in instructions. Training should improve sign language proficiency and the support use of digital tools to enhance learning. Educators are encouraged to use interactive techniques like role playing and storytelling, which actively engage students and help them acquire both vocabulary and complex language skills. For the policymakers, the literature recommends investing in standardized curricula that integrates visual and kinesthetic strategies. Funding should also support continuous teacher training and long-term research to evaluate strategy effectiveness. These steps are necessary to ensure adaptive, inclusive education for DHH students. For the conclusion, this systematic literature review has shown that strategies such as visual scaffolding, finger spelling, and interactive tools can effectively support English acquisition for DHS students. However, their impact is often constrained by challenges, including insufficient teacher training and the cognitive complexity of science-supported instruction and the absence of standardized LLS-based frameworks tailored to DHH education. To address this, we can turn to Oxford's Language Learning Strategies taxonomy, which classifies these strategies. This framework provides a valuable foundation for structuring strategy-based instruction. So moving forward, it is important to adapt Oxford strategies, basically for bilingual bimodal DHA students, those who are use both sign and written or spoken language. Teachers or educators should not be trained not only in sign language but also in how to explicitly teach LLS within science-supported English instructions. Finally, we need longitudinal research to evaluate the sustained effects of these strategies on literacy and language development. Addressing these gaps will contribute to more inclusive, effective, and not only that, equitable English education for deaf and hard hearing students in the community. Thank you. That's all from me.